No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken Live, episode number 204. And for the past 6 weeks, there has been a secret, coordinated, and let's be honest, very grim smear campaign by Reform UK to suggest Rupert Lowe, the party's star MP until just last month, has dementia. Coincidentally, just as he launches the biggest political fundraiser in British history to create the critical rape gang inquiry. So I'm sick of the lies. I'm sick of the cover-up from the mainstream media. So today I'm going to reveal the truth of what has really gone on, including a bombshell leaked message from Nigel Farage. Now, I'm not doing this to tell you not to vote for Reform, but rather to show you the lengths that that party will go to in order to take out people who are truly prepared to change the country. Then Rupert Lowe himself joins me live to respond to what he has this afternoon described as, quote, incredibly disturbing developments. It is so good to be back with you live today, though. I hope you enjoyed our countdown of the 50 worst people in the UK today last week, while I was on the high seas with my good friend and former GB News colleague, Mark Stein. I have to tell you, it really was the most inspiring week on the Stein at Sea cruise. Loads of freedom fighters were on board with me. Alison Pearson, Naomi Wolf, Michelle Bachmann, Father Calvin Robinson, Lawrence Fox. And over the past few months, so many of you have asked me to interview Mark about the circumstances surrounding his shock departure from GB News. I can tell you, we did just that on board. I cannot wait to share it with you very soon. By the way, the other thing that absolutely shocked me, do you remember my April Fool's Day joke about Sadiq Khan renaming Whitechapel Station Chapel? It was a joke that was anchored in reality, and as a result, went just a little bit too well. Those MSM clowns at Reuters actually issued a fact check last week on it. They said, referencing the British capital's Public Transport Authority, Transport for London, and Mayor Sadiq Khan, New Zealand and British journalist Dan Wootton wrote on X, Sadiq Khan's TfL is planning to permanently change the name of London's Whitechapel station simply to Chapel, after a council-funded report claimed the existing designation reinforces racial stereotypes and gives into a narrative of colonialism. Reuters said Wootton and the Mayor's office did not immediately respond to a request for comment. A spokesperson for TfL said in an email that there is no truth to the online claim. Verdict: satire. The claim was first posted by a journalist who said it was an April Fool's joke. I mean, seriously, folks, we are in clown world. We cannot even take a joke anymore. Also coming up on the show today, though, the truth about the rape gang cover-up as Rupert responds to Nigel Farage's broken promise, and the shocking downfall of Celebrity Big Brother on Woke ITV with claims of Islamophobia against the axed housemate, the former Tory MP Michael Fabricant. Then we've got the Uncancelled Aftershow returning live on Substack, www.outspoken.live. Prince Harry has been exposed for lying about the royal family in the media yet again after his delusional courtroom show trial. So I'm going to team up with the brilliant Royal News Network for all the latest on a shocking 7 days at the Palace and Montecito. We've got loads to catch up on, so sign up to watch www.outspoken.live. Of course, we're also back with Greatest Britain and Union Jackass 2, the UJ nominees as chosen by you today. Ed Miliband, nominated by Cat Mum 13 because we're importing coal from Japan rather than using the site at Cumbria. Michael Gove, isn't it now Lord Michael Gove, nominated by David J for services to plotting, scheming, betrayal and lockdown zealotry. I love that. And the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper, nominated by It's Only Me 44 for allowing migrants to flow into the country but rejecting an inquiry into the grooming gangs, which we will discuss with Rupert Lowe later in the show too. So it's a big one ahead. Let's go. So many of us on the so-called online right, whatever that means, we're prepared to throw our weight behind Nigel Farage and Reform UK on the understanding that he would lead a MAGA-style movement to save Britain by promising mass deportations, ending lawfare against those considered conservative, fighting for free speech, and uniting, and maybe this was the most important point, uniting a talented team of giants prepared to come together because our very existence is under threat. And that's why the 6-week-long campaign designed, and I'm not exaggerating here, designed to destroy the party's best performing MP, Rupert Lowe, has completely shaken our faith in this movement and made us question what is really going on. Now, you know I'm always honest with you. I proudly voted for Reform UK at the last election. I was also the first commentator anywhere to predict Nigel Farage would lead a populist revolution to become Prime Minister in 2029. I have absolutely no personal issues with Nigel, but I cannot sit back and watch the total destruction of a good man with a blemish-free record, a man that we envisaged as our hard-charging Home Secretary protecting our border at any cost based on smears. And let me tell you, the MSM, as usual, have covered up what is really going on here. GB News, my former employer, has banned interviews with Rupert Lowe at the behest of their star presenter Farage. A ludicrous situation for a broadcaster claiming to be unafraid. So after weeks of lies, I think it's my responsibility to bring you the truth. But I will caveat by saying that I am not wanting to damage Reform UK before the local elections or anything like that. However, if their approach continues like this, I do wonder if it will be possible for them to ever attract another heavyweight talent to the party again. So I can reveal today that 2 senior figures within Reform UK have directly briefed multiple journalists the downright lie that Rupert Lowe is suffering from dementia in a brazen bid to end his political career. I've also learned that Farage's Daily Telegraph column after the party reported Rupert Lowe to the police for apparently threatening the life of its chairman Zia Youssef was written specifically to act as a dog whistle to that claim. And for anyone doubting the veracity of what I believe is a coordinated and secret campaign, a very sophisticated campaign, I can personally tell you that I was briefed on Rupert's so-called dementia. What I can also disclose today is that Nigel Farage himself knew that such a claim was untrue. I have been leaked a WhatsApp exchange between a Reform UK insider and Nigel himself, which took place in the hours after the publication of his Telegraph column. So on Sunday, March the 9th, and I'm going to show you this leaked WhatsApp message, I verified this. On Sunday, March the 9th, the Reform UK source asks Nigel, "Do you honestly believe Rupert has dementia?" After some prompting, Nigel replies the next morning, "No." Many bad signs, though. I would say anger management issues. So that message proves that Nigel knows that Rupert Lowe does not have dementia. So given that, why has Reform been so desperate to spread this rumour, this dark smear of a serious health condition that literally isn't there? Well, Rupert himself will respond shortly live. But let me tell you, it's my understanding that Youssef, the party's chairman, likely with Nigel's approval, decided after Elon Musk's endorsement of the Great Yarmouth MP that keeping him within the Reform tent was going to be politically impossible. And with that approach, by the way, it's going to be impossible for Reform to attract the talent needed to save this country. I have also discovered that Suella Braverman, the ex-Tory Home Secretary and leadership contender who Reform so desperately needs to defect, has been put off defecting, specifically because of the treatment of Rupert. Meanwhile, the party's leadership team of Nigel Farage and Richard Tice continue to live in this sort of fantasy land where they believe the public doesn't give a damn about this story. Watch. I'll bring you that in just a moment. But to respond now, live to my revelations and those comments from Richard and Nigel, let me bring in Rupert Lowe. So, Rupert, the WhatsApp message... I've broadcast today proves that Nigel Farage knows you do not have dementia. Yet my reporting reveals that senior party figures have continued to brief that you do. How has it come to this, and what's your reaction?
Well, first of all, Dan, let me say there is absolutely no medical veracity to the assertion that I have any form of dementia, whether it's early onset dementia or any other form of mental impairment. I think my brain is working better than it's worked for 67 years. And given the work I've done in Parliament, if anything, it's been sharpened. So I think that's completely incorrect. With regard to anger management, no issue there. With regard to my change in demeanour from when I was in the European Parliament in 2019, I think that's all complete poppycock. But look, it fits this script which they seem to be using to try and denigrate me as a person. They obviously, as you know, came out and they made two complaints. Lee Anderson made a complaint, as did Zia Yusuf, to the police, both of which were completely false in my view. And my lawyers are 99% sure those will be dropped. If they're not dropped, then we're looking at lawfare. The entire process that's been followed by reform has been flawed. I've spent a lot of my own money on a KC's report just looking at the process they've followed, which the lawyer concerned from Blackstone Chambers has confirmed does not basically match up to any form of professional inquiry that one would expect it to. There are conflicts everywhere. You have their KC, who's not actually qualified in employment issues, writing new employment complaints on behalf of the two girls who both were under, both went through processes for gross misconduct and misconduct, and both actually resigned ahead of the completion of those processes. All of that was done entirely with parliamentary HR input, so it was done entirely properly. And it was an attempt, I think, to smear me with bullying allegations. As you say, the dementia allegations, I think, plumb a new low in terms of footballing analogies, playing the man and not the ball. In rugby terms, tackling low or neck tackling jump into one's mind. I think what we're seeing what we're seeing here is, sorry, somebody was passing me a note in the background. No, what we're seeing here is an attempt to denigrate me. You probably know, Dan, that my wife and I had a visitation from the police. They took all my firearms and my shotguns away. 4 armed police, 4 cars, late at night, left at 1:45. I'm a 67-year-old with a completely unblemished record. I'd never seen the inside of a police station until I visited Hammersmith voluntarily. And now we're just waiting for this process to work its way through. And very often, I think, in modern Britain, the actual process that the state follows is extremely unfair to those people who are innocent. It grinds on a glacial pace.
Well, and, indeed, the process is the punishment. It really is.
And is the punishment. And really what's so disappointing about this is that I was standing on a ticket with the other Reform MPs of effectively changing all this lawfare and the rules which are allowing people to make false allegations against each other. And really, a great belief in free speech and freedom of speech and all of the Anglo-Saxon virtues that have made this country what it is today. Unfortunately, we've imported a lot of the European sort of rules which didn't used to apply here. The essential difference I use between us and Europe is that in Europe, unless the law tells you can do something, you assume you can't. Whereas here, unless the law tells you can't do something, you assume you can. And that is an absolutely massive difference. And unfortunately, 40 years in the European Parliament meant that we imported a lot of their culture, which ultimately came a lot of it from Napoleon. And it's very damaging for freedom and freedom of speech. But I think what we have to do here is look at what Reform are doing and how they've done it and why they've done it. And the reason they've done it now, Dan, we now know the timelines. And
yes,
it's because I gave an interview to Andrew Pierce
with the Daily
on
Mail.
the 25th of February. The complaints relate to meetings which happened in December. There are WhatsApp chains that would not indicate that there was any issue. And both of the statements that are made, in my view, are completely false. But I think the issue is Nigel didn't want to talk about the issues that I considered important. And the most important thing to me was that winning the election, I thought was not going to be the issue, because I think the British people are ready for change.
Yep.
They've watched the two-party system march them close to collapse. I think we are seeing, if you like, the thrashings of a sort of complete failure in terms of government of the country. So I said to Nigel, what we've won that argument, and I think I played a reasonably big part in that with the work I did in Parliament, the work I did on social media, and the people who helped me. I've got a fantastic team around me. And indeed, my constituents in Great Yarmouth, who I think have great faith in me, and I'm absolutely delighted about that. But I said to Nigel, unless we start forming a shadow cabinet, unless we start coming up with policy, unless we start coming up with policies, structures, and an actual plan, so that when we win the election, we deliver for the people, then ultimately we will never be forgiven, and I would not be by his side. And as you say, Elon Musk played his part. I think my social media following was much more powerful than Nigel's, became much more powerful than Nigel's. And in a way, what this is, I think, is it's about envy and central planning and narcissism. It's not about what's right for Britain. And I'm driven really by what I want to do, and what I've always wanted to do is to ensure we end up with an accountable government, an accountable parliament in Westminster, which is not what we've got at the moment.
Are you saying that you think Nigel is a narcissist?
I think Nigel is a narcissist. Yes, I've concluded that. I mean, I would have died in the trenches for Nigel, but I think in the end you have to blame a leader when things go wrong. And I think what has happened in the last 6 weeks is a really poor reflection on both Reform. It's a poor reflection on the way in which Reform is running its future plans for the British people. And I think there are some characters now within Reform who arguably Nigel has delegated too much power to. And as a result of that, he's almost lost control and influence. And
do you mean Zia Youssef?
I do. Yeah. But to use the dementia card is just going very low down. And I think it's fairly evident for everybody to see that I don't have dementia.
Yeah. You're no Joe Biden dodgering your way through an interview.
No, I'm not sleepy Joe Biden. And
no, exactly. And people can judge for themselves. They can watch our previous exchange. These are long form conversations. Someone with dementia would not be able to cope with that. Let's just be honest about it. Can I ask specifically about the leaked WhatsApp message?
If I can say on dementia,
yes, please.
Dan, I really think this needs saying. How can you use that card? I mean, my mother's 93 and she's got mild dementia. I think dementia is the most upsetting situation for not just the people with it, but their families as well. And to use dementia as a stick with which to beat me, and it fits in with the shotgun script, with the, losing control script. It sort of encourages action from the police in terms of confiscating my guns. I think they knew exactly what they were doing. And it really is a vile smear to be using. And I
Yes.
mean, Labour, the Tories, one might not respect them, Dan, but they've never stooped that low as far as
Well,
I'm
exactly.
aware.
This is not what our side is meant to do to each other. That is the point. It's what we expect from the left. It's not what we expect from our side. Can I ask you specifically, Rupert, about the leaked WhatsApp message, which I revealed in my digest? This feels very significant to me, Rupert, because Nigel is admitting that he knows you do not have dementia. Very, very clear. Do you believe he has dementia? No, Nigel answers. You can see that there. Yet, presumably, he knows that the senior figures within the party are briefing that you do, because there's not that many senior figures within the party.
Well, if he doesn't, Dan, he's not leading the party properly, because ultimately, if things go well, the leader gets credit, and if things go badly, the leader gets criticism. So I think exactly. He knows full well I haven't got dementia. He equally, in that same WhatsApp chain, which went on for some time, he knows full well that what has happened to me is a grave mistake. But I think he was driven out of pique and anger. It's got nothing to do with any other issue than the fact that I gave that interview because I couldn't get Nigel to sit down with me, and I couldn't get him to talk to me about the policy, the structure, and the plan to deliver for the country when we won the election. And I don't want to be part of any political party which promises a great deal and then delivers nothing. That would be Boris-esque to say the least. So Boris had an 80-seat majority, and he singularly failed to do anything. And that's what makes it very difficult for the Tories now to actually land any punches on Labour. And as you probably hear, all Labour do is parrot the line that, oh, well, you were in power for 14 years and you did nothing. Yeah. So as an opposition, they're not in a very strong position. I personally still think that somebody from outside the existing establishment is the only way in which this country is going to be reformed. Right now, I want to clear my name, which I'm confident I will do. I will then turn my mind to how I finish off what I started a long time ago when I stood for, well, first of all, I challenged the Maastricht Treaty. Then I stood for the referendum party in '97 to save the pound, because our establishment would have all signed up for the euro to a man. And then I did a lot for business for sterling, a lot for vote leave. And then I served in the European Parliament and helped achieve what I would call a sort of partial Brexit, even if the establishment wasn't committed to actually delivering what the British people voted for. And so I'm completely determined to try and finish off what I've started. I don't have any idea about what form that will take now, but I don't see myself, I've got all the options are open, but one option I don't think is open now is, you know, in football, I always said you can't win anything with bad people. And I'm afraid to say that the people I sat with in Parliament, the way they behave towards me is not how you should behave towards fellow party members,
return to reform.
Let alone a fellow MP.
No return to reform, you're saying, even if you're cleared by the police.
I couldn't return to reform unless there was a complete change of leadership and a complete change of structure and a proper plan to deliver for the British people. Because the problem we've got looking at it, and I learn more every day, is that the country, Dan, is now run by 23 permanent secretaries, and the structure in Parliament is not capable of holding to account those 23 people. Most of us don't even know who they are. But they're the people with power. They're the people who've been undermining Britain with effectively wokery, with net zero, with all the things that are creating terrible trouble for us. And I found it a great irony at the weekend when we're talking about bailing out British Steel, which is fine. But the first thing you've got to get right is our energy policy, which is ultimately the reason why companies like British Steel are not viable, because our energy as a country is far too expensive. We're not using the resources we've got, and we are effectively pricing ourselves out of the market, and we're costing all of our blue-collar workers as well as our white-collar workers jobs in the future. And it's all very well to talk about jobs being created by net zero, but ultimately, you know, our economy needs things like steel making. It needs the sort of basic drivers of industrial capitalism. and to be relying on China and other sort of foreign countries for strategic imports is a very ill-advised move, particularly when the world is in such a fluid form at the moment.
Yeah, it's suicidal.
It's mad.
Rupert, I spoke about in my digest these two specific clips on GB News featuring Richard Tice and Nigel Farage. I do want to play them both to you because I've got them back now so that you can respond. I think it's important, especially given GB News is prepared to talk about you and your situation on air, but isn't actually prepared to interview you. So here is firstly the interview between Richard Tice and Camilla Tominey. This took place last weekend, but it infuriated people because of Richard's reaction to the question as to whether you have dementia.
Has Rupert Lowe got dementia?
I've no idea. I mean,
why a reform?
You'll have to ask him.
Well, he says not. He's 67. He says he's perfectly cognitively functioning. Why on earth are reform sources putting it about to the media that Rupert Lowe has got dementia? Well, he says you are.
Camilla, this is a story of a month ago.
No, it's still a story. No, it's still in the papers.
Let me tell you.
With respect, Richard, I think I will decide as a journalist here whether that's a story or not.
Out in the real world, with respect, I will tell you what people are talking about, and they're not talking about this. What they're talking about is who actually is going to save Britain, who's got the right policies to drive this country forward, who's going to reduce the bills and all. That's what people are talking about.
I'm loving this political pivot, and we will get on to how great reform is in just a moment. However, Rupert Lowe is still a story because he's suggested through his own KC that your investigation wasn't really worth the paper it was written on.
Oh, surprise, surprise. He didn't like ours because it found credible evidence that he and his staff...
Are we disagreeing with Gemma Whale KC of Irwin Mitchell? I mean, she says...
I've no idea who she is. We had an independent report...
She's saying that your report wasn't carried out properly.
Fine, KCs disagree. Right. We've had an independent report. It showed there was credible evidence. The story's weeks old. Everyone's moved on.
Is it weeks old?
It is weeks old.
Sure it is. I think it's still rumbling on.
You may be obsessed with this, but most people out there are obsessed with lower bills and who's going to get the economy growing again. That's what people are obsessed with. We're all obsessed with that.
And you did see my interview with Darren Jones earlier, so I think you know what I'm obsessed with, which is the hike in national insurance and how it's affecting businesses. So you don't know whether Rupert Lowe has got dementia or not, but you're not denying that people in reform have been putting about that he might have.
I am denying that. It's nonsense. The reality is that we've moved on and we're focused on the elections that are going on all over the country where we're allowed to have them.
But Rupert, it wasn't nonsense, and I presume that Richard Tice knows that it's not nonsense.
You just confirmed that, Dan. We know it wasn't nonsense. That smirk of Richard's is really very unpleasant, isn't it? And, you know, I would never have called Richard a close friend, but he was a colleague. He is a fellow MP. And I think that the least he could have done, because he knows I haven't got dementia, but it suits the script. And I think he actually let the cat out of the bag. What they really want to do now is just move on and leave me sort of in their wake and hope that I don't cause them too much trouble. That they've done that to many people in the past, as you know. I mean, Stephen Wolfe. We've had it done to Ben Habib. It's been done to, countless people by Nigel and his cohort.
Suzanne Evans, Christina Neil Hamilton,
Suzanne Evans. You've got
Henry Bolton,
Kilroy Silk. I mean, look, there's no need to go through
Godfrey
them all.
Bloom. Yeah, a whole load of political carcasses, and actually, all of those people would probably form a really good party, and I will come to that in just a moment. But if I could say, yes, Dan, please. I mean, on what they did with their, I reviewed the process they followed with the KC, which cost me a lot of money. Yes,
and the process they followed was awful. What they populated that process was even worse. So we will be serving papers on various elements of reform in the next few days. And if they don't accept the error of their ways, then it will all be coming out in court, because what they've done is not only morally wrong, it is principally wrong, and it's not the way that you should treat each other, and certainly not the way that you should treat a fellow MP. So this is all going to be very public and very high profile. And the last thing this is going to do, Dan, is fizzle out and a piece of detritus is not going to be left behind the caravan as everybody moves on, that's for sure.
So just to clarify, Rupert, are you saying that unless Reform UK retract what you say are smears against you contained in the KC report, you will sue the party?
We will be issuing pre-action letters very shortly. They're all in the process of they're being done as we speak. So they will be served shortly.
And is that the party or Zia Youssef or Nigel Farage or all three?
I will do a little interview with you when they've landed, Dan. But I think this is about ensuring that people behave properly, and they haven't behaved properly. And this does happen to me. I've fought a few libel trials, and I've had a few issues in the past. But I am not going to just allow people to behave like this.
You're not going to be another one of those carcasses on the road.
No, I'm not, Dan. And I think it's the country I want to put first. Yeah. It's not about a party. It's about the country. We are being led badly. We haven't got the right people making the right decisions, the long-term decisions on behalf of the British people. We are being taken for fools collectively. And at the end of the day, I think most people in Britain can now see that we need a change in the way in which we're governed. And I'm 67 now, and I'm committed to trying to find a formula which delivers that for the British people.
Look at Trump. You're positively a baby, Rupert. You've got 2 decades.
Dan, I employ lots of people, and I think the British people are the best people. I really think their sense of humour, their ability, the history that we have. We have the fantastic sort of foundation of a country. The problem is that the head has gone rotten. Mm-hmm. And somehow we've got to cut the head off, and we've got to start to deliver for those people who are actually doing the work. And really that means sorting the state out, because in the same way that it's the NHS that's causing our health service a problem, it's our British state that's causing us a problem. There are too many people now working for the state. They are not productive. They all have pensions that are far too big, and they are basically holding back through regulations, through licensing, through unnecessary laws. They're holding back the latent ability of the British people. So I'm absolutely determined. As I said to you, I've got a history going back a long time. I'm completely consistent in my wish to do this. And over the years, I've sort of couldn't quite believe that I was seeing such a deficient structure in terms of the structure that's supposed to be leading these incredibly able people. But now I'm 67, I can definitively say to you, Dan, we have a completely broken leadership in this country. The structure, the way in which we're governed, the people who govern us, and the way in which it's delivered for the British people is completely and utterly deficient. And I think everybody can see that now. But will reform be able to change that with a centralized structure that it's got at the moment? Very definitely not. It will not do it. And I would not want to raise British people's hopes and then let them down. I think actually that's worse than not trying at all. So unless things change radically within reform, they are not going to deliver the sunny uplands that I think could happen for the British people if they shed this awful sort of oppressive statism, which is taking away people's incentive to work, to contribute, and to drive the economy. So I mean, there in a nutshell is what I think, and I'm not going to be knocked off course by people who tell a pack of lies.
Rupert Lowe, Nigel Farage is furious with you, though. It only takes the mere mention of your name for his back to get up, for him to clearly look furious. It's almost as if he believes you have derailed his local election campaign. I'm going to talk about the rape gang inquiries and how you have exposed him for lying over that in just a moment. But first, Rupert, can we watch together this very spiky interview on GB News, which is Nigel's employer, when Christopher Hope, their political editor, admits that the station's viewers are absolutely furious about your treatment.
Well, we've got you now, Nigel Farage. Lots of viewers and listeners of GB News are disappointed about your falling out with Rupert Lowe. It seems all he wants is to meet you for dinner and put it to one side. Why? I mean, yeah, you're rolling your eyes, but they want you to get together. Why can't you just put together your rows and take on your rival parties?
Why don't you leave Westminster and come out in the real world? I've now spent 2 weeks. I'll be walking down high streets today in Derbyshire, in Staffordshire. One person in 2 weeks has mentioned this to me. As you know, an independent KC report that interviewed the women who'd made the allegations of bullying said there was credible evidence. Let's wait and see what the Parliamentary Committee does. And can you imagine what you'd have said to me, Chris, if I'd had bullying allegations made against a member of my team and I'd done nothing about it? Can you imagine?
Well, he denies all wrongdoing, of course.
OK, Nigel Farage.
He's shaken and stirred, isn't he, Rupert Lowe?
Well, Dan, in truth, I think he knows he's got it wrong. Or I think he knows the people around him have got it wrong. But is he big enough to admit that? Probably not. Nigel does not have a history of easily basically admitting that there's been a grave error of judgment made. So unfortunately, when people behave like that, they tend to dig a bigger hole for themselves. And I suspect that's what he's trying to do. I think he knows. I think a lot of people around him know. And look, my profile in terms of my knowledge, people's knowledge of me across the country is by no means as big as Nigel's. But I can tell you, Dan, that my social media footprint is now up to 8 times bigger than Nigel's. And, you know, with my history in football and with my history in a lot of businesses that I've run, you know, because I've chaired public companies, I've been chairman of the Prince's Trust South East, so I've done my bit for charity. Most of the libel awards that I've won in the past, I've given to charity. I'm now not in this for anything other than changing the way the country's governed. It's not about money. And, you know, I think people should ask Nigel about money. He's still doing little memes at 80 or 100 quid a pop. I think he told me he earned 27,000 in December, doing pre-recorded messages to people for their birthdays and things like that. And when I said to him, well, at 2 minutes a meme or a cameo, that's 600 minutes, that's 10 hours you spent this month, Nigel, when you're trying to set up a new party. Is that a good use of your time? I mean, look, he is very much driven by money. I think he's driven by power. I think he's driven by influence. And I think what we need people who are driven by what makes good government, what effectively delivers for the British people, and what is going to change the way in which British businesses flourish, the way in which British people flourish, and actually returns the norm of British interface, which is based on free speech, it's based on total freedom, and it's based on people being able to pursue their lives as long as they don't effectively damage the interests of the people who are around them. So I think Nigel's increasingly, in my view, in it for himself. And that's become abundantly clear to me. And I think my error, Dan, if there was an error, is arguably I got too big for Nigel's liking. And I'll tell you something, in my life and my experience, I'm not the most able person. And I've always surrounded myself by people who are more able than I am. And actually, that's what we need to do now. We need able people coming up with logical, sensible policy, which is going to change Britain for the better. And that's what I'm hell bent on doing. I'm almost through with talking about Nigel and talking about reform. I want to look at the next step of how I can make a difference.
And one thing that you have done already, which is going to be hugely significant, I'm a massive supporter of this, is launch the rape gang inquiry. It's extraordinary. all of those Indian bots that Nigel's speaking about, Rupert, have somehow managed to raise over £500,000. I mean, this is absolutely incredible. You have cross-party support. Even James McMurdoch of Reform UK is going to be on your panel of experts. So is the incredible Esther McVeigh, a very sound Conservative MP, and a wonderful victims advocate in Sammy Woodhouse. So this is going to be a really important project. Before we talk about the details of it though, Rupert, what I want to do is show a video which you had posted yourself on X, although it wasn't made by you, it was made by someone else, showing how Nigel changed his message on the rape gang inquiry from being something that he pledged to do, from then saying it was impossible. Watch this.
If the government will not hold a full public inquiry, we at Reform will do it. A full, open, public inquiry. We will raise the money at Reform UK. I will have no difficulty in raising the money. Live streamed, covered properly by mainstream media.
Will you have the statutory powers that will be granted to you through a public inquiry?
No, I won't have the statutory powers, but I tell you what, I think this would garner such massive public support that anybody that was asked to appear that didn't appear would look terrible. There's no point me holding an inquiry into this, or Rupert Lowe holding an inquiry into this, unless it has statutory powers. If we have an inquiry without statutory powers, it won't achieve a thing. We've probably got a few weeks, but no more than that. I am standing down as leader of UKIP. I resigned. I said I'd resign.
It's right that I should now stand aside as leader of UKIP.
Leader of the Brexit Party. You'll have to reform into the Reform Party. I'm not going to go on as leader of Reform UK.
Coming back as leader of Reform UK.
Immigration is the #1 issue in British politics. We are not, as a party, and no party I've ever been part of, anti-immigration.
This is the immigration election.
I'm not going to get dragged down the route of mass deportations or anything like that. Deport anybody that's here illegally, as we used to. It's impossible to do. Literally impossible to do.
If you've read different on X over the last few weeks, sponsored by Indian bots, I suggest you ignore it.
It's a political impossibility to deport hundreds of thousands of people. We simply can't do it.
I've kept every promise I made in the run-up to that general election, and since...
don't get fooled again.
Hi, Nigel. Rupert Lowe's threatened legal action.
Good.
I'm bored. Would you be prepared to fight him in court on that? If he took you to court, would you fight him? I shall look forward to it. Thank you.
Do you think that Rupert Lowe is responsible for...
Yes.
Sorry, Rupert did say that he was asked to tone down his speech.
You all laughed at me. Well, I have to say, you're not laughing now, are you?
Meet the new boss. Same as the old boss.
I'm going to let go.
We're going to wave you goodbye.
So we took some of the music off there, Rupert, for copyright reasons.
You did. You took the music off, Dan. That's made by our friend Brew Galoo, who is, I have to tell you, incredibly talented.
Well, indeed. And the point of the video, though, is effectively saying what? Nigel Farage is part of the establishment. He's going to let you down. He doesn't keep his promises. Is that what you believe the point of the video is? And do you agree with that sentiment?
That would appear to be what he's trying to demonstrate. But I mean, on the crowdfunder, I sat next to Nigel. He didn't have a clip of me sitting next to Nigel in the chamber when he said he would have an inquiry. I've become increasingly vexed about this issue, as you probably know, as I've learnt more about it. And I actually was very outspoken about it in January in the chamber. And I'm very glad now that the Tories, particularly this wonderful Tory MP called Katie Lamb, made a wonderful speech in Parliament last week about it. So I think we are moving the Overton window in terms of people being happy to talk about I think is probably the biggest blot on stain on our history. And this goes back an awfully long way. I mean, back to sort of early 2000s, and it's got progressively worse, and I'm told it's still going on. So I really think the Labour Party should be having a full inquiry with statutory powers, and there should be a timescale for that inquiry to report. People actually criticize me for having this crowdfunder, but I think, as you say, the fact we've raised so much from so many people shows that this is of huge concern to a great number of British people. And frankly, if we do nothing, nothing will change. So I make no apology for having the crowdfunder. I'm incredibly humbled by the amount of people and the amount of money we've raised. We're going to put together a committee of people who are cross-party. I don't think this is a political issue. I think this is an issue of right versus wrong, light versus dark, bad versus good. However you want to look at it, this is a vile chapter in British history. And it's quite extraordinary that the powers that be have not chosen to look further into this and to punish those people who've clearly been perpetrating the most vile crimes against some of the most vulnerable people in our society. So I'm absolutely unapologetic for doing it. I've given a reasonable chunk of money myself because I feel so strongly about it. I'm absolutely delighted that I think over 18,000 people have now donated, which is incredible.
It is.
And we're going to try and ensure that with the help of Sammy, who I gather you were on a cruise with last week.
Sammy Woodhouse, great woman. Oh my goodness, she is so inspiring. Such a brilliant choice.
We've got Recusant Raja, who's done a hell of a lot of work on this. And as you say, I'm putting together a group of people who will hopefully come
Labour,
up.
where's Labour? Are you going to get a Labour MP, Rupert?
Well, I've
Surely.
been talking to Labour MP today, but unfortunately, I have to report I haven't been able to persuade them. I think they felt they would lose influence within the Labour Party on this issue if they accepted a position.
Total disgrace.
But I've got a few other ideas. I'm trying to find the right chairman. I've tried a couple of people for the chair. So look, it's going to take up some time, but I think it's a really important issue. And I'm hoping that the government will look at how much concern this is to how many people. And when we actually come up with some of the detail of quite how vile this issue is, that through whatever means we can use, whether it's a judicial inquiry, judicial review, whatever means we can use, we need to, as a country, shame Labour into having a statutory public inquiry. As I say, it's got to be a quick inquiry. And I think we want punishment, as I've always said, for those people who perpetrated the crimes, those people who presided over those people who perpetrated them, the people who knew they were being perpetrated and did nothing. Obviously, those police forces which didn't do enough, those local councillors who didn't do enough, the social services who didn't do enough. And I think until we've done that, Dan, I don't think the country can move on. And I think people on the ground agree with that. And I'm delighted to be trying. And whether I succeed or not is not the issue.
No, we have to do something.
It's better to have tried and failed than not to have tried at all. And that's where we are.
Well, Alison Pearson on the Mark Steyn cruise told me that she now believes the rape gangs are the biggest scandal in British history. And
without a shadow of a doubt.
And we have to do something. We can't just sit back and allow Labour to cover it up because they're trying to protect the Muslim vote. But look, Rupert, I've got to move on to the raw politics, please. I wanted to share 2 posts on X with you from the past 24 hours. First, Bo Dade, who wrote, "Dear Mr. Lowe, are you going to form a new party or movement and lead us into a new politics? I need to know. We need to know. We're dying out there, sir. We are in extreme need. Now's the time. Don't let the days go by. Yours sincerely, Bo Day." And then Ben Habib, your former colleague, former deputy leader of Reform UK, posted, "Every day the UK changes just a little more for the worse. Every day. We are all aware of it. We feel it. We don't need statistics to inform us that our country is being not so slowly scrubbed out. We need a movement able to stop and reverse the damage. It is urgent." And today, Rupert Lowe, we learn that Ben Habib is planning to take control of the Integrity Party and perhaps is going to use that as a vehicle for a new political movement. Have you had any discussions with him? Do you know about it? Are you on board in any way? And what's your feeling about where this goes, given the urgency that Bodade says, look, we need you to do something here?
Well, look, I feel that I would like, as I said earlier, to find a platform which gives us a chance of changing the way in which we're governed, Dan. But as we said earlier, the lawfare that Reform have pursued against me, which I think has been bestowed on me by various Tony Blairite laws, which I thought we were all standing on a platform to repeal, means that I'm currently still under police investigation. That grinds through at glacial pace. As I said to you earlier, I'm completely innocent of any of the claims that have been made against me. I at the end of the day, am now a hostage to a system which grinds slowly through, and it punishes you whether you're guilty or whether you're innocent. So my lawyers give it a 99% chance of being dropped. If the 1% comes up, that just confirms to me that it's state lawfare. And at the end of the day, that would just make me even more entrenched. But until my name is cleared, I think all options are open. I know that Ben has now done what he's done with the Integrity Party. I'm not part of that at the moment. I do talk to Ben. I admire him greatly. I think he's extremely clever. I think he was treated very badly by Tice, Farage and Reform. He did an awful lot to keep Reform going when Nigel Farage left the field to make money. And Richard Tice was running the party, or arguably co-running it with his girlfriend Isabel Oakeshott. So we all did a lot to keep the party going. And, you know, I think I can't make any decisions until my name is clear. Now, I'm assured that shouldn't take very long now. So I will then be in a position to make a decision. I also read an article today that the Tories would like me to join them. Well, I get on extremely well with a lot of the Tories, and there are some very good young Tories, as I mentioned, Katie Lamb. There's another chap called Jack Rankin. I mean, there's some very good young Tories, but the problem they've got is that they've got a Tory party, Dan, which is dysfunctional in that a lot of the Tory MPs are not Tory. They're Lib Dems, and they'd be better off in the Lib Dem party. So until they can sort out head office and they can sort out those MPs who arguably aren't Tory, I think it's difficult to see how the Tory party is going to deliver for Britain. So
well, I did want to read out what Kemi Badenoch had to say about this in the Sunday Times yesterday, because it was odd. And it sort of felt to me like everything that Kemi Badenoch does at the moment, you can never really realise if she's Arthur or Martha. So in the article, she's asked whether she would welcome former Reform UK MP Rupert Lowe. And she says, I would like positive defections, not negative ones. But then she goes on to say that she has given her tacit approval to Tory council leaders to form non-aggression pacts with Reform in areas they cannot win, saying, I trust Conservative councillors to make the right decision. So did you take that as her saying she doesn't want you, or that she's keeping the door open?
I think the door's very much open. And as I say, all options are open. I want to keep all options open. There are some very good Tory MPs. There's some good people in the Tory party. I read it that Kemi would like to see the back of this police investigation. And as you know, Dan, in life, I've had this with my football career. I had a manager or a head coach who was taken or treated very badly by the CPS. His case collapsed, but at the end of the day, as an innocent man, his costs were taxed and he had to write a check for £250,000. So this country has a habit of treating the innocent very badly. And I think I've just got to clear that and get rid of the no smoke without fire brigade, and then I can move forward. And I read Kemi's comment as referring probably to that. And I think in a way,
maybe fair
if
enough.
that is what you referred to, I do agree with her. And that's why I think I've got to put this behind me. So hopefully the Hammersmith police who have been dealing with this will pull their finger out and get on with it.
Pull your finger out, exactly. We can't wait for months because, as you say, the process is the punishment. Rupert, I also wanted to ask you about Matt Goodwin. I'm not sure what your personal relationship is with him. I've always liked him a lot, and he's appeared on Outspoken, have a lot of respect for his work. But he's taken a very interesting approach to your defenestration, and he posted at the weekend a poll which showed Reform in the lead, saying Reform lead again. I noticed the people tweeting about the looming implosion of Reform have stopped with a laughing out loud emoji. Now, that seems to suggest that he is completely comfortable with your treatment. It also seems to suggest that he is now almost operating in lockstep with the party, which is an odd thing for me because I, as an independent journalist, always believe that you've got to hold political parties to account. Do you know what is going on with Matt Goodwin and Reform? Is he effectively now part of their PR operation in a way? Because I can't really work it out, but I just know he was very strongly against you.
I've got no idea, Dan. I mean, I like him like you. I've got a great deal of respect for the work that he does. Of course, he's come from the other end of the political spectrum, as indeed a lot of people do change as they get older. I took him out for lunch. I think he's very keen to be an MP, and Reform obviously offers him that opportunity at the moment. I took him out for lunch, and he then cancelled lunch with me on the basis he was held up on his way back from Italy, and I haven't heard from him since. So I don't think he knows the ins and outs of what's happened to me. He probably doesn't care. I think you have to go back to what I call the 5 golden rules of business, which is what's in it for me. And I think he looks at it as what's in it for me is being Matt Goodwin MP. And that's what I think probably is driving most of his loyalty to Reform. And good luck to him if that's what he wants to do.
Yeah. I have no problem with that.
I bear no malice towards him. I think I actually subscribe to his his news sheet. But
excellent Substack.
It's very good. The Substack's extremely good. So I read it with interest. But it's disappointing. I think I wouldn't call him a friend, but I've got to know him quite well, and I've had quite a lot of interface with him. We spoke at various Reform Party conferences, not least the one last September, and I've got to know him reasonably well. But I haven't heard much from him. But you know what, Dan? I quite like finding out who my friends are when things go quiet and if things are difficult. You know who your friends are, and that's a pretty good way of cleansing the Augean stables, frankly. So when you clear your name, you know where the goodies are and you know where the baddies are. So you make a mental note of that.
No, indeed. And look, I've had that experience myself over the past couple of years. I guess the one thing that I would say, though, is that I just wish people would be honest about where they stood, because I am totally transparent with my audience that I am an independent commentator. I don't shill for any political party. I'm not a propagandist for any political party. I just want to tell you the truth. Likewise, I'm not trying to destroy Nigel or attack Reform in any way. I just think we need the truth out there. And I think we have seen from quite a lot of commentators that probably deep down what they want to be is a Reform UK MP. And that's totally fine, by the way, but I think it just means that they're fulfilling a different role. Rupert, stand by, because in just 1 minute, I want to talk to you about this crazy attack on free speech throughout the country. We saw it from police officers over the weekend, but also in the celebrity Big Brother house on Woke ITV. So I'm going to show you a couple of crazy moments in there in just 1 minute. Don't go anywhere. But first, you know how I often talk to you about the need for free speech to be protected, but I've been increasingly thinking lately of the need for personal protection from snoopers, bad actors, and hackers online. But I'm delighted to tell you today that I have a fail-safe solution. And what's more, this VPN is also a life changer when it comes to providing you entertainment and information from anywhere in the world, wherever you are. So I want to introduce you to Surfshark now. It is an incredible, easy-to-use service that encrypts all your internet traffic, meaning your online activity stays safe so you can shop, stream, browse, and conduct your banking online in complete privacy. But the benefits of Surfshark actually go beyond keeping you safe online because it allows you to access your favorite entertainment news shows, channels, streaming services like Hulu, iPlayer, HBO Max, Peacock, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus. And what's cool is you can literally be accessing those services within seconds as if you were watching from another country. So if you're traveling for work or on holiday, you can also get all your favorite content from home, including sports. It's an insurance policy against creeping censorship in many countries like France, which has blocked Rumble for many months. Effectively, it allows you to watch anything, anytime, anywhere. True freedom. But a VPN can save you money too because you can get the best deals from websites that change their prices depending on where you're buying from. And there are other benefits too. You can use Surfshark on unlimited devices, meaning your entire household can stay safe with just one subscription. And with over 3,200 servers in over 100 countries, there is a world of choice at your fingertips with 24/7 customer service if it is your first time using a VPN. So go to surfshark.com/outspoken for an extra 4 months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. I have to say, I was totally reliant on Surfshark on my cruise over the past week, and it was brilliant. It was like I was in the UK. What's more, Surfshark is so confident it's the best VPN in the world that you can give it a try for a full 30 days, and if you're not entirely satisfied, you will get your money back. So go to surfshark.com/outspoken for an extra 4 months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. But now, back to the show. Breaking right now, free speech in Britain is under attack in so many ways. We see people who are peacefully protesting outside abortion clinics found guilty, having to pay £20,000. We see mothers like Lucy Connolly, who tweeted something that the establishment consider inappropriate, in jail for 2.5 years. But even our entertainment is now becoming completely infected with the woke mind virus. And there has been no better example than the celebrity Big Brother house on Woke ITV. Now, this used to be a great show. This used to be a really fun show. Not anymore. Look at what happened when Mickey Rourke, the Hollywood actor, went into the house and was told that he had to refer to a drag queen, which is a bloke who dresses up in women's clothes in a particular way. It's head-spinning stuff. We'll get analysis from Rupert Lowe in just one moment. Watch this first.
The one with the shoulders, the guy or girl, whatever, is very nice. I don't know how to refer to him or her.
Big Brother suggests you refer to Danny as she when in drag and he or they when not.
It gets confusing. Okay, she. Just a nice person. A wild look. Wow.
Rupert Lowe, this is dystopian, isn't it? I mean, Mickey Rourke, by the way, has now been booted out of the house. The guy is a Golden Globe winner. He's in that house with a whole load of Z-listers, but he has been booted out. And quite right, he's saying, well, this guy is standing in front of me as a bloke. And yet, you meant to call him that. I mean, can you get your head around any of this?
Well, Dan, no. I was saying to my assistant, who's here in Parliament with me today, that I recall Mickey Rourke in a film, you might remember it, called 9.5 Weeks with Kim Basinger.
Yes, I loved that movie.
And he looked young and fit then. I'm not sure he looks so young and fit looking at him in the celebrity house. I have to confess I don't watch that dribble, but I on the free speech issue, we should be able to say things to each other, even if they're slightly offensive. The Equality Act and a lot of the sort of Blairite legislation has, in my view, distorted the human relationship between British people that used to be very sound and everybody used to rub along pretty well. This woke rubbish is just creating division. It creates a fear of telling the truth, and it creates a society a bit like communism. Communism, ultimately, when the wall fell, Russia was probably inhabited by 97% of the people who lied, because you had to lie under communism in order to survive. You couldn't have any form of overt wealth being displayed or views being displayed or anything which criticized the party. And you ended up with a dishonest society. And I think that's where we're heading at the moment. And in our sort of wokery, in our Equality Act and all of the other rubbish that's been peddled on us by lawyers, by woke administrators, by regulators. I mean, embedding Stonewall philosophy in the regulation of our financial markets, Dan. It's no wonder London has basically become an almost irrelevant financial centre when you compare it with where we were in 2000. And you have to blame Blair and Cameron for a lot of that. Cameron's as guilty as Blair, by the way. And, a lot of this selecting people on quotas rather than on merit. No, people should be selected on merit. I don't mind what colour people's skin is, what the religion is. If they're doing a job, then you select them on merit and merit alone. Otherwise, as Trump says, you end up with airlines that crash, and you end up with businesses and governments that don't function. So, I think it's the same. Boards now have to be made up of certain quotas of whether it's women, whether it's, all sorts of sort of criteria, which quite frankly, it's a load of rubbish. I mean, we should be selecting people on merit and merit alone. So I don't like the direction that the country has taken.
No.
And I think
the problem
that's what we've got to change.
The problem is, Rupert, there are some real bad actors too, who I think look to exploit this division when it's not there. So you just saw on screen there, he's a quirky character. I've always been really fond of him, actually. Michael Fabricant, former Conservative MP. Don't necessarily agree with him on a lot politically. I'd argue he's on the woker side of the Conservative Party, but certainly a nice guy. Used to come on my GB News show a lot. Then you have Trisha Goddard. Now, she's a very accomplished TV presenter. I also know her really well, right? And used to get on very well with her. But lately, Michael, there's almost become, Rupert, there's almost become this grievance industry, this race grievance industry. And I want to show you this moment from within the Big Brother house where Michael Fabricant is simply talking about the terrible treatment of Jewish and Christian people in the UK, which I'm sure we can agree on. And Trisha Goddard, out of nowhere, accuses the guy of Islamophobia. Watch this.
Do about the immigration issues in the United Kingdom now?
Well, first of all, I'm not originally, like quite a lot of people I suspect, of English origin. My surname is French, and I'm of Jewish extraction. So I'm a real immigrant.
Sorry.
And the point I'm making is Jewish people, when they usually come to this country, believe, do in Rome as the Romans do. Do not come to this country if your aim is to change everybody to your way of thinking. There are other people...
Hang on.
There are... What?
Hang on. Are you slipping into Islamophobia? Because you're going to have a
Who
trouble.
has mentioned Islam?
I'm getting out of this one.
So people are so terrified. They're literally removing themselves from the conversation because they can see, oh, holy crap, this Trish is about to accuse me of racism. Now, he hadn't mentioned Islam at all, but would there be anything wrong with saying that actually if Muslim people come to this country, they shouldn't be able to change our norms? They shouldn't be able to introduce Sharia law? I mean, to me, that's a perfectly reasonable comment to make.
Well, Dan, I didn't hear any evidence of Islamophobia, but it's a very common sort of line to throw at people, isn't it? I'm regularly on X saying that if people want to come and live in our country, then they have to come and live here under our laws, under our rules, and effectively to integrate with our culture. And if they don't want to do that, they're better to stay at home. And I think a lot of our problems emanate from the fact that people come here and they actually don't either like or respect our culture. They have different views on women and on other sort of cultural matters. And as a result, they end up living in almost ghettos across the country, which is extremely bad for the fabric of our society. So I say to people, if you don't want to come here and live by our rules, then don't come in the first place. And it's a fact that I've traveled very widely, that most countries and cultures. I mean, if you go to Japan or you go to China or you go to almost any South American country or you go to the Gulf, you go there and you accept their rules and their religious customs, or you either get arrested or you're punished. So I at the end of the day think we've lost our way in basically standing up for what we believe in, and I do very much like living in a Western democracy. I like a Christian culture, and I'm not against targeted immigration, but the prerequisite for me is that people must contribute and they must integrate. And if they're not going to do that, Dan, then stay where they are, frankly. And I think this sort of institutional bias towards Islam is a function of a sort of guilt on the left, which has to be dealt with. And I talk regularly to Douglas Murray. I think he is very sound on this issue, and he is very clear about saying similar things to those which I'm saying. And he's just published a new book, I think, which I'm very keen to read. So
yes, he has. I just saw Donald Trump endorsed it, which is pretty much like the biggest endorsement you want for a new book. But the problem that we've got, Rupert, is that now our police are so deranged. They are policing free speech to an extraordinary manner, including this really shocking example, which has gone viral over the weekend, of suggesting that it could be a hate crime simply for telling someone that they should probably be speaking English. Watch this.
Apparently during some conversations between yourself, apparently you have alleged, we weren't here, so I don't know you've said it, but you've alleged to say, speak English, or was that effect? Speak clearly. Speak clearly.
No,
okay.
The gentleman's partially deaf.
Yeah, he can't speak clearly. Yeah.
So I couldn't even hear him.
No, and that's fine, and that's why we've just come to speak, because potentially someone could perceive that as a hate crime.
Did we just know this was going to happen?
No, I know. People, if someone says to me, officer, I believe this, then we need to look at it, because someone's potentially reporting to me.
Rupert, what hope do we have?
Well, Dan, I mean, when you find, I think there was somebody who was actually arrested for standing outside an abortion clinic and praying.
Convicted. Yeah, convicted.
And convicted.
She just held the sign up saying, here to talk if you need.
What on earth is going on? I don't blame the police on the street, and equally the police who came to my house were, although they had 2 guns apiece and there were 4 of them, and I'm a 67-year-old pensioner with an unblemished track record in terms of the law, I'm not sure they needed to turn up mob-handed without ringing me. But I didn't blame the policemen. I blame the people who lead the police. And I blame the people who basically control the police, which is the Home Office. And a lot of the rubbish emanates from the people they select to lead the police force, who have to jump through all these sort of woke hoops. And the poor men and women on the beat, they are effectively instructed to deliver this rubbish law, which effectively emanated from Harriet Harman and the Equality Act, most of it. There is obviously some came from the Race Relations Act and other things, but I think this is what I want to repeal, and I want to effectively restore Britain to the way it used to be. And I'm encouraged by a lot of our supporters, my supporters particularly now, are Gen Zs who I think agree with the fact that they want to be given a chance to live in a country which used to be one of the best places on earth to live and to enjoy life. Now, when you see a clip like that, you think to yourself, how could George Orwell have been so accurate, or Aldous Huxley, or a lot of these wonderful writers who in the 30s feared the kind of society that we now is unraveling in front of our eyes, Dan. I mean, it's incredibly worrying, and I'm afraid it's not up to just a few people like me to stand up. I think it's time for everybody to stand up.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And the only way they can change that is through the ballot box. So we have to now, that's what's so disappointing about this reform nonsense.
It is
we've got to find the platform that's going to deliver the agent and the catalyst for change. And that's now at the top of my agenda once I've navigated my way through woke Britain and having acquired a new understanding of the inside of Hammersmith Police Station, albeit in a voluntary interview, which I'm sure many people have had. And now just sitting patiently, paying lawyers large sums of money to chase an outcome almost every day. But I think the state has, I understand, 6 months from the time of the offence to actually reach a decision as to whether they intend to prosecute or not. So as you and I have agreed rudely, it's the process which is almost as much of a punishment.
Of course, because your life is on hold, and as you say, there is much to do. But Rupert Lowe, thank you so much for being here today. Huge amount of positive feedback from the Outspoken audience. Anglo Hero 62 says, Rupert, you would and hopefully will make a fine, honourable Prime Minister. DJ 61 says, this man has integrity. He means what he says. I truly believe he has the makings of a good Prime Minister and will bring back normality in our country. And Kath Lissenden says, I don't think Farage had a clue what a can of worms he was opening, which I think is a very good point. So Rupert Lowe, thank you so much. And obviously we will keep in touch. Now, time to reveal today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass, your nominees today. Ed Miliband from Cat Mum 13. I love that. I'm a cat dad. And that's because we're importing coal from Japan rather than using the site at Cumbria. Michael Gove, nominated by David J for services to plotting, scheming, betrayal, and lockdown zealotry, which I love too. And the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper, nominated by It's Only Me 44 for allowing migrants to flow into the country but rejecting an inquiry into grooming gangs. And of course, the small boat crossings hit a record-breaking 8,064 for the year so far. Okay, let me get to the results. I hadn't looked yet. Oh, just 4% for Michael Gove, which I don't think says too much about him. It's more about the competitors. The runner-up with 29% is Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, but the runaway winner, today's Union Jackass, Ed Miliband, 67%. This guy is dangerous. This guy is blackmailing us. This guy is going to destroy us. Nut Zero needs to end. So he is a brilliant choice. And if Slippery Starmer wants to stay in his job, the first person who must be sacked in a cabinet reshuffle is that man, today's Union Jackass. Greatest Britain, though, nominated by Big Mama Booth, and it's Maggie Oliver. And she says she is an amazing woman who stands up for victims always. And of course, we spoke much about the rape gang inquiry with Rupert Lowe. Now, coming up in the Uncancelled Aftershow on Substack, I'm teaming up with the Royal News Network because, my goodness, crazy, shocking, mad 7 days both here in London and in Montecito. Prince Harry exposed for lying. Meghan Markle's new lie in her podcast. Oh my goodness, it's all going on. Plus, a real invasion of privacy for Prince William and Catherine. So we've got loads to discuss with the Royal News Network. We're going to do it in just a few minutes' time because we're just sorting out the Substack link. So do stand by. It won't be too long. But the Substack address, www.outspoken.live. It is such an important platform for me, Substack. I'm sure you've heard me talking about that for quite some time. All I need you to do is sign up. You can do so completely for free. You give me your email address. That is it. I do not spam you, but you will get exclusives directly into your inbox. And it's a way to protect me against cancellation because the thing is, most big tech platforms do not allow you to keep a direct connection with your audience. Substack does. So the address is www.outspoken.live. See where there's the little box next to the submit. All you have to do is enter your email address in there. Substack will tell you the rest. If you do sign up to the monthly paid membership, then you get access to the Uncancelled Aftershow every night. Hope that makes sense. Thank you so much for your company today. Goodness me, it is great to be back live, although I did love my 7 days on the Mark Stein cruise, and I'll tell you much more about that in the days ahead. But we are back live tomorrow, 5 p.m. UK time, midday Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. I'm really excited. Making his Outspoken debut, the brilliant Liam Halligan. Another one of those men shockingly treated by GB News. And this is a guy who is now thriving in the independent space. I am very excited to have him on Outspoken for the first time, so please do join us. If you want to be alerted, just hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble. Click the notification bell, then you're told about our new episodes first. And most importantly, I promise to keep fighting for you.